Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's debate, hosted by the Greater Naga Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Naga Association of Realtors. And with us today, we also have the Executive Officer, Sarah Hart, who's with us. So thank you for partnering with us. And for those of you, I know many of you in the audience, my name is Mishka Balsam, and I'm the CEO of the GNCC, the Greater Naga Chamber of Commerce. I would like to start out, as we do normally before we start any public meeting, is by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place, and we also recognize the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and Indigenous people both in shaping and strengthening this region, this city in particular, and our province and country as a whole. And I wanted to say that we don't say these words lightly. I think that over the last couple of years, we have really learned how important it is that we actually get a greater understanding of our roots that we have, of the wounds that are related to it, and the healing that can take place. I also would like to acknowledge, as some of you have mentioned, you have deep roots to the Ukraine, and I just wanted to say that I'm really impressed by this community and how we have supported and the efforts that have come forward to support the very difficult situation that Ukraine is facing at this time. So thank you for those of you who are here. And if you, at the end of this event, would like to share some more information with others, please feel free to do so. Tonight, we welcome candidates from St. Catharines riding. Before we meet our candidates, I would like to explain a little bit about the format of tonight. The candidates that are seated here to my left are in order of a draw that was held before they came into the room. I also want to say that we likely not all agree with the policies proposed, but we respect all the candidates by being willing to serve their community and for putting themselves in the public eye. And if we've learned anything over the last couple of years, it is very difficult for candidates to put their name forward, and it's very strains the conversation. And so for us here to come together, I hope that we can give each and every party actually the respect that they deserve. I also wanted to say, if I could ask you to refrain from applause, cheers, or boos. I know that inherently within us, sometimes we strongly agree or disagree with the candidate, but we also find that that's very hard often as an audience to be part of this. We see much of it happening in social media channels, and I thought maybe in a room here together we can just listen to them. We know how we feel about it, but if we just listen to it and give each and every candidate a chance to express their policy, we can still make a decision on June 2nd or prior to it, but let's honor that they've stepped forward and are here with us today. We also want to encourage you to vote on June the 2nd. It's a privilege that is granted to us here in this country, but really something that we can't take for granted, as we see in so many other countries where we don't have that privilege and the right to do so. Also, we want to encourage you, if you already have made up your minds, you know that advance voting is available to you as well as mail-in voting. Some of you have come up to me this evening and this afternoon and have reached out to us beforehand too regarding the PC candidate Sal Sorrento, who was on the program. We had promoted him being part of it, but isn't here today. We acknowledge and respect that parties clearly want to control the message ahead of an election. We personally have expressed that we think this is a missed opportunity for voters, for all of us in this room, but also for candidates. And I think especially at a time where millions of Ontarians and eligible voters in Ontario have already decided to not cast a vote, have already decided not to show and get invested in the discussion when it comes to this government and the policies we need to see, we look at this as being a missed opportunity. But I wanted to let you know that we did extend an invitation to all candidates here. We heard just prior to me starting out from the candidate, Win Simon, who is with the Communist Party of Ontario. It is not that we did not choose him to be here. We only were contacted by them at 11 o'clock today, and we felt it wasn't fair to the candidates here who were preparing for today's debate to not know who was on the panel. So we, at 11 o'clock today, decided actually the candidate who just approached us for the first time today, that we didn't want to make the changes out of respect for you and out of respect for actually the candidates that are there. But we're glad that he is with us, and if you wish to engage with him or have interest, I think he has some pamphlets there, and also he's available after the debate. And on that note, let me get started, because you have much more important questions that you want to have answered than actually listening to me. So, in order, to my left, we have Jennie Stevens. She is the incumbent NDP member of Provincial Parliament for the City of St. Catharines, and she is the first woman to ever hold the seat. Deserve the applause too. So, with over 15 years of political experience, Jennie knows that the key to being a successful politician is listening to her constituents and making their concerns her top priority. As a lifelong resident of St. Catharines and previously as a city councillor for the Maritime Ward, Jennie has the knowledge and experience to strongly advocate for affordable housing, tenant rights, mental health, and addiction. As a member of the official opposition at Queen's Park, she is the current critic for veterans leading the military affairs. Thank you for being with us, Jennie, and thank you for the service for the past 4 years.
Thank you.
And next to her is Keith McDonald, candidate for the New Blue Party, and he's a retired entrepreneur and a resident of St. Catharines. Keith spent much of his career in finance and admin up until 1986, when along with his family he founded McDonald Systems Group, an IT solution provider based in St. Catharines. Since retiring from the business community prior to 2020, Keith and his wife operated a traditional bed and breakfast in their home, welcoming international guests from many cultures. Thank you for being with us, Keith. And Madill was born and raised in St. Catharines and has served as a firefighter for the City of St. Catharines for 30 years and is interested in representing the Liberal Party at Queen's Park. He has been the president of the St. Catharines Professional Firefighters Association for the past 11 years, where he has successfully bargained for higher wages and better mental health benefits packages for his members. In the community, Ryan has volunteered extensively with charities such as Pastoral Mental Health, the Rankin Cancer Run, and Start Me Up Niagara. Thank you for being with us, Ryan. And at this time, it's my great privilege to actually move the debate over to my colleague, Hugo Cheshire. He's our Director of Government Relations and Policy, who has lived, worked, or studied in the UK, Canada, France, China, the Philippines, and the Czech Republic, and who has made Niagara his home since 2000, and we're really glad that he did make that decision. On that note, Hugo, over to you.
Hi everyone. I feel like that bio really makes me feel, sound a lot more important than I am. But I'm delighted to moderate this debate tonight and to welcome all of you and to thank you for being here. Because taking the time to hear our candidates, informed voters are what makes democracy work. And democracy works because of you in this room. I'm just going to briefly review the rules of the debate before we proceed to the main event. So each candidate has been seated in an order determined by a drawer, as Mishka had said. They will deliver their opening statements in this order and their closing statements in the reverse order. In the interest of fairness, they will also take turns at being the first to answer each question, and they will be kept to a time limit. Each candidate also has 5 opportunities throughout the debate to offer a rebuttal, which can be delivered after all candidates have answered a question. Candidates can offer a rebuttal to another rebuttal. We call this rebuttal inception, if it occurs. Our questions tonight have been drawn from our community ahead of this debate, and they aim to reflect the concerns of a broad cross-section of St. Catharines. The candidates have not seen any of these questions before. Now, I am aware that nobody has come here to hear me tonight, and I don't take that personally at all. But without any further ado, let's proceed to our debate, and starting with our opening statements. And I turn to you first, Ms. Stevens.
Good evening. It is a distinct honor and a privilege to be here this evening. I want to thank the GNCC and community partners for giving us this opportunity this evening to be able to address the concerns of the area residents in St. Catharines. I am Jennie Stevens, and I have been your MPP for the last 4 years, and I would be honored to be able to represent you for another 4. I have worked very hard to serve our community for the past 20 years. Ontario has been through a lot. during the last few years. The pandemic exposed exactly how broken our healthcare system is. Nurses, doctors, and other healthcare professionals were left short-staffed and underpaid and run off their feet. Seniors in long-term care face terrible conditions in a privately run long-term care homes. Families in Ontario are finding it harder and harder to make ends meet. Together, we can fix what is broken. I am pleased to say that the NDP has a plan to fix our broken healthcare system and take the profit and greed out of the long-term care. The NDP has a plan to tackle climate crisis and to look after our educators and our students. Together, we will help make life more affordable for everyone in St. Catharines. To put it simply, we have a fully costed plan to fix Ontario. On June 2nd, make your vote count. Re-elect Jennie Stevens.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, many of you, I'm sorry. Is it already on?
Should be.
Good. Can you hear me? Doesn't seem to be.
No.
Oh, there we go. Does that work?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, a lot of you may remember me from the days of McDonald Systems. I'm very pleased to be here this evening as a candidate for the New Blue Party. That's a change in my vocation, and I'm very happy about it. We've been to St. Catharines for over 40 years, my wife and I and our family. We've made it our home, our children, grandchildren live here. So we have a lot of interest in the future of our community. And we want it to be better, better than what we've seen. When the election was first announced, or even before it was, when we knew it was coming on, we looked around. I did a bit of research on the internet, trying to consider what direction we could take in our vote for June 2nd. And I was disappointed that there wasn't a party that represented the conservative values that we've known for so long. But I did discover that there was a New Blue Party, and I'm very happy that I did. And so the end result of that was that I was invited to be the candidate, and that's why I'm here this evening. Jim Kariogas and his wife Belinda, both very energetic people, and they have done a fantastic job of growing the party and bringing it to a full slate of 124 candidates for the election. That's an amazing accomplishment. If we can elect more MPs to work with Belinda, then that will be even a better plus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Madill.
Hello, is this on?
Not yet.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the Chamber for organizing this debate tonight. I'm honored to have the opportunity to be here today to debate with my fellow candidates on who is best equipped to represent the riding of St. Catharines and Queen's Park. My name is Ryan Madill. I was born and raised in St. Catharines, and I'm the proud father of two wonderful daughters, Riley and Fiona, who are here tonight supporting me. I've been a firefighter in St. Catharines for the past 30 years, held the rank of captain for the last 12, and been president of the St. Catharines Professional Firefighters Association for the last 11, both positions of leadership and trust. Now I'm running to be your MPP for St. Catharines as the Ontario Liberal candidate. I'm running to be your MPP for a number of reasons, but the number one reason is because I care about this community and because I have experience witnessing and solving the issues that are harming our residents and our community. As a firefighter, I've been to thousands of calls over the years where I've seen firsthand the effects of poverty, the effects of drug overdoses, and the conditions inside for-profit long-term care homes. And I've seen how inadequate government services can make these issues even worse. These are issues that you can trust me to fix in St. Catharines. I'm proud to be part of an Ontario Liberal team under our strong leader, Stephen Del Duca, that you can trust to work nonstop to not only solve these issues, but to improve the quality of life for everyone in St. Catharines. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much all. Let's get on to some questions. My first question. The prices of homes in Niagara have gone up by as much as 25% per year. Many young people are finding it impossible to buy a home, while more and more of renters' income goes towards housing. How would you work to increase the availability of affordable housing in Niagara? Ms. Stevens.
Thank you, and that was a great question. I know that everyone in St. Catharines is finding life a little bit more difficult after the pandemic, but everyone deserves an affordable and stable and clean space to call home. Housing is a human right. Families being forced out of neighborhoods they grew up in is becoming more and more common here in St. Catharines and across Ontario. Greedy landlords and speculators are buying up available properties and hiking up rents. Mass evictions are taking place. No resident in St. Catharines should find themselves in a position where they cannot afford a home. The NDP commits to giving young families 10% down payment assistance. We will reestablish rent controls to ensure new tenants pay what the last tenant paid. The NDP will overhaul landlord and tenant boards, but most of all, the NDP will work for everyone to be able to have an affordable housing.
Thank you. I think I heard someone ask me to repeat the question. It was, how would you work to increase the availability of affordable housing in Niagara? Mr. McDonald, please.
There we go.
Well, housing includes more than just buying homes. There's the rental market that's important also. And yes, it's a serious problem. Some of my family and people who they're very close to have difficulty even finding an apartment. And when they do find one, it's more than they can afford. So there's a great number of people that would just be happy to rent an apartment or a home at a price that they could manage. Many of our citizens are on the disability government program, and that makes it even more difficult. They're not eligible to even be on the lease from the landlords. So these issues are top of mind, and we will do everything possible to improve them.
Thank you. Lastly, Mr. Madill.
Thank you for the question. And there's a lot that I'd like to say about the skyrocketing rents, but I'll stick to the premise of your question and talk about available housing and how it affects buyers. And it's obviously there's a big problem with the supply, and we have to increase the supply. And the Liberal government, our platform proposes to double the amount of new house builds until we can build 1.5 million new homes for people, including at least 138,000 deeply affordable homes for people. And there are other things that we can do too, that we will do, and that is to put a stop to foreign purchases of houses in Ontario, put a tax on vacant houses, put a tax on land speculators that hold on to property that should be developed, waiting to flip it, that should be getting developed now. These are just some of the things that we'll do to improve housing availability. Thank you.
Thank you all. Next question. Although real incomes are rising, they are not doing so at anything close to the pace of inflation. How would you work to lower the cost of living for Ontarians? Mr. McDonald, you are first to answer this question.
Our party has put a blueprint together with a number of items that will help people in that regard. One of the things is we need some tax relief. They promised to reduce the HST by 3% to 10. That will do a lot. The carbon tax, taking off the gasoline, that would help a lot. So there's a number of items there. It's going to be very difficult to get our cost of living where it should be, but we are committed to do everything possible can to make the cost of living better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madill?
Thank you. And affordability is one of the biggest issues that we have in this province right now. We have a comprehensive plan to address affordability issues in all different areas. One is Buckerized province-wide. That will save families that have to use public transit and GO trains a tremendous amount of money every month. And as well as taking 400,000 cars a day off the road and helping our environment. Economic dignity package to raise the minimum wage to $16 as a minimum and have a regional average for areas that are more expensive to live in. A benefits package for young people so that they can get dental care, farm, drug plans, mental health protection. These are things that will make people's lives a lot more affordable. Taking the cost of taking the HST off of prepared meals, $20 or less, that will help affordability for families as well. Those are just some of the things we'll do. Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. People cannot afford to live, to pay their bills, to pay for childcare, or even save for retirement. It's time that you elect a government that will make sure that you will be able to afford these things. Be able to afford a house in the community that you grew up in. To make sure that you can afford to put food on the table. Medication, pharmacare, universal pharmacare. Can you imagine being a senior and having to cut your pills in half because you can't afford your prescription? What about dental care? Dental care, universal dental care, so that everyone can have a nice smile, but also cut back on the hallway medicine. This is huge. If we can't afford dental care, our health care, what happens is that we have hallway medicine. You know, we also have to look at minimum wage and make sure that you can make a decent living.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens, I see you wanted to offer a rebuttal to an earlier thing.
Oh no, I asked for the question to be repeated, but thank you.
I will take one off your tally. Okay, next question. According to Ontario's Pay Equity Office, in 2020, women earned 14% less in median hourly wages compared to men. What is your understanding of the pay equity gap, and what is your approach to address it? Mr. Madill, first.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up that question because the Ontario Liberal Party has a proud history of trying to address and narrow the gap in pay equity between men and women. And the Ford government scrapped a lot of programs that we had implemented that were working effectively. And we will do a number of things. One is that we will make job postings show the range of pay that is being advertised or what is attached to the job that's being advertised. And it will prevent employers from asking somebody what the previous wages were. And also, we're going to require public companies to provide data on the wages and salaries between men and women. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, you're next.
Thank you. I'm not sure if everyone out here or in the viewers' audience knows that women in Canada still earn about 71 cents for every dollar men earn. As of 2020, the gender pay gap for hourly wage was about 11.3%. The wage gap has always been greater for racialized and Indigenous women. During the pandemic, women have been disproportionately born with the impacts, particularly racialized and lower income women and single mothers. Women are more likely to be working on the front lines in healthcare, as we've seen. They have jobs that they have to go to, often holding two. Women are balancing childcare, online learning, and their own careers. We have watched the Stephen Del Duca and the Kathleen Wynne for 15 years let women down, and the Ford government put in caps to public sector wages below the rate of inflation.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. The NDP party continues to be a party of the past that keeps talking about governments from years ago. And let's talk about some of the things that the Liberal Party has done for the city of St. Catharines, including the moving the Ministry of Transportation to downtown St. Catharines, bringing hundreds of jobs, building a new hospital, Meridian Center, Performing Arts Center, the Aquatic Center. There are so many great things that the previous Liberal government did in those years back then. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was a rebuttal from Mr. Madill, but I do want to give Mr. McDonald, and your names sound a little bit similar, so I'm sorry if I'm confusing, but Mr. McDonald, I would like to give you a chance to answer too.
Thank you. Well, we know that these statistics are true. We know that there's been much improvement over the years, but the thing about improvement and progress is that it needs to continue. And so that's the role of government to some extent, but there's a lot of responsibility in the community also and in the businesses. There needs to be more transparency. That will help. And there needs to be encouragement in the homes and in the schools and in the families. Encourage the young women to reach for the sky. Encourage them to go after good paying jobs. And that helps a lot. I've seen that firsthand. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Madill, you'd like to offer a second rebuttal?
Thank you. Other things that the Liberal Party is committed to that will increase women's ability to compete equally in the workplace are $10 a day high quality child care, as well as $10 a day preschool and after school child care. And on top of that, 18-month parental leave with no penalty for taking the extra 6 months as is currently there. These are things that will level the playing field and allow women to advance in their careers in the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, did I see you also wanted to offer a rebuttal? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. We can't forget what the Liberals did. It's not past governments. It was only 4 years ago. We must remind the public what happened. I must remind you that the Liberal government went to court to fight for pay equity for midwives. Predominantly women caring for women fairly. The pay gap didn't improve over their watch. I know that the NDP will make sure that pay equity is there and that women will be getting their fair wages so that they can put food on the table for their children.
Thank you. Seeing no other rebuttals, I will move on to our next question. Ontario healthcare is seeing out of control wait times, staff shortages, and hallway medicine. What does your party plan to do to provide a healthier healthcare system? That's nicely worded. Thanks to whoever sent that in. That was good. Ms. Stevens, I turn to you first.
Thank you. You know, it's been getting harder and harder for Ontarians to get healthcare they need. Things have to change now. Our healthcare system is desperately on its knees. Too many of us know what it's like to spend hours and hours in an ER waiting room, sitting on uncomfortable chairs while our little ones are in pain, and everyone's uncomfortable. Hospitals are so crowded, patients getting stuck on gurneys and hallways. What do we have to do? We have to make sure that we fix the system. You know, the Stephen Del Duca and the Liberals created hallway medicine. They can't be trusted to fix what they helped break. They froze hospital budgets and fired 1,600 nurses. What does the NDP, what do we commit? Investing, not cutting. Repealing Bill 124, Ford's legislation that help cap healthcare workers and wages. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm on. On the healthcare, it's a complex question. There's a lot of issues. I do believe that early treatment is really important in easing the burden on our healthcare system. And I think it has been underestimated and it has been underemphasized. We haven't seen enough effort in that area to emphasize early treatment options that will keep people out of the ICUs The healthcare workers who lost their jobs should be hired back. The multiple private delivery options for tests and procedures is totally comfortable working with the hospital system. It's all publicly funded, and it does reduce wait times when you need an MRI, and it's not available locally.
Thank you. Mr. Madill.
Thank you. Thank you. Doug Ford and the Conservatives abandoned our healthcare system when people needed it most. They took billions of aid from the federal government and didn't spend it. They then punished our healthcare heroes, our nurses, with Bill 124. We'll repeal Bill 124, and we'll increase the wages of nurses to pay them what they deserve, and also increase the pay of PSWs to a minimum of $25 an hour. We'll hire the nurses and the doctors that we need to get rid of the backlog. So many people have died waiting for surgeries because the hospital was full and open, understaffed, and overcrowded. We'll commit to the funding, we'll get rid of that backlog, we'll ensure that everyone in Ontario gets to see a doctor within 24 hours and can get the treatment that they need in a timely manner. Thank you.
I know we're hearing a lot of stuff we like, but if we pause for applause, we'll never get through all these questions. So, if you would, thank you. My next question: how would your party work to tackle climate change while minimizing the impact on the economy and our cost of living? Mr. McDonald, you are first.
Well, I'm not sure if I should thank you for that question or not. But it's a tough one. Governments are continuously trying to work on solutions. Often the solutions backfire. And what I don't think is a solution is to just throw millions and millions of dollars at something and then not manage it well, not make sure that it's used properly. So I think that's the number one thing in managing anything, and this challenge of the economy and the challenge of the climate change requires some careful management. As much as we have some money to spend in that direction, we need to be sure that it's applied wisely and carefully, that it's not just totally wasted.
Thank you. Mr. Madill.
Thank you. As humans on this planet, this is the issue of our time. And Ontario has always been a leader in climate change action until Doug Ford Conservatives got in power, and they spent tens of millions of dollars to cancel clean energy projects and take already installed charging stations out of the ground. We are committed to addressing our environment and dealing with it the best way that we can in Ontario by promoting clean energy, by going to committing to reducing our CO emissions in Ontario to 50% of 2005 levels by 2030. Bucker Ryan will take 400,000 cars off the road. We'll plant 100 million trees a year for 8 years. That will be like taking 500,000 cars off the road. We'll encourage electric vehicles with rebates. The answer to climate change is not to build more highways over farmland and over protected land. It's to go clean energy and better transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. The future can be full of promises and hope if we work together on our climate change and our climate actions. We have to do actions, not promises. So the NDP, a new cap and trade program. It's easy. Electrifying all municipal transits. Let's work together to get that happening. Let's establish Ontario's first youth climate court, restoring the powers of the Environment Commissioner. But most of all, let's look after the climate, the environment, the place we all live, so that our children and my grandchildren, who I love and dear the most, have a chance to fight against climate change. Let's work together. The NDP has a plan. It's the new Green Deal. Check it out online. It is bold, it is good, and is something for you to look forward to when we form government on June 3rd.
Thank you. Mr. Madill, I believe you wanted to offer a third rebuttal, sir?
Yes, thank you. This proposed cap and trade system that the NDP is bringing forward is a big reason why their budget will cost the average family $1,000 a year more, because it's only scheduled to return 25% of what it taxes back to families. So the average family will pay $1,000 a year more. It'll affect their cost of living. We will enhance the current carbon pricing system, the federal government, to make big polluters pay their fair share. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question. Many industries are experiencing severe labor shortages. Some, like nursing and the skilled trades, seem perennial. Others, like the hospitality industry, have recently appeared. How would your policies guide young Ontarians into fruitful careers and ensure a labor market that is adequate for our growing economy? Mr. Madill.
Thank you. That's a very important question, and we need to encourage people to get into the trades, and most importantly, we need to give them accessibility to enter the trades. So we're going to start funding post-secondary education again in Ontario, which Doug Ford has stopped doing. We're going to give grants and higher rates of OSAP to low-income students. We're going to encourage them to go into skilled trades, as well as other academic fields in university. We're going to encourage apprentices. We're going to work with the trades unions and trades associations, and we're going to come up with ways that they can bring in more apprentices, and we can increase the amount of skilled labor that we have, because we definitely need it. We know we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. Again, this is seems to be the start of all of the questions that the people of St. Catharines are wanting to hear. Life has been getting harder and harder for everyone, including our young workers. The cost of living is out of control, and a lot of young folks' paychecks aren't keeping up. So the NDP will raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour by 2026, increasing to $16 in 2022. It is important that each student now at post-secondary will have grants instead of loans. This is so important when you get out of post-secondary school, and if you have a loan that you have to pay back, how are you going to be able to afford housing? How are you going to be able to afford food on your table? So we will make sure those are all turned to grants.
Thank you. Just before we proceed, I know that you have opinions, or you will have the chance to express them on election day, but out of respect for our candidates here who are volunteering their time and volunteering to serve their community, let us try and be quiet and respectful and listen to the answers, to judge them appropriately, and then we'll have a chance to express our opinions very forcefully at the ballot box. Thank you. And now, Mr. McDonald, sir.
Thank you, Hugo. So on this particular topic, it's sort of hand in hand with the gender issue and the pay equity issue. Encouraging young folks to take trades in high school, which is a wonderful opportunity. I have a granddaughter who became a CNC machinist in high school and got a good job, and her pay was a lot higher than if she'd gone over to the local McDonald store. So this helps her, and it helps the gender balance, but it also starts her on a career that will pay well, and she doesn't have student loans up there. So I think that needs to be encouraged more. I know there's been some emphasis on it, but perhaps more, and it's something that we can encourage our young people to do. Let's work on it together.
Thank you. Mr. Madill, I saw you made eye contact. Was that a rebuttal request? No? Okay. No worries. Let's move on. Now that Ontario has signed a childcare agreement with the federal government, how will your party work to ensure that funding for childcare is appropriately implemented in our region to reduce costs, attract more childcare professionals into the field, and increase the number of spaces available? Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, there we are. We need to hire more early childhood educators, ECs, in Ontario to meet increasing demands for full-time childcare. We have recently seen over 4 years during a pandemic the Ford government not take a leadership role in Ontario. You need a government that will take a leadership role and make sure that when the federal government offers some cost savings to the residents in Ontario, they take them up, they go to the table, they negotiate, and we make sure that the $10 a day childcare is there. This was costly to the average family in Niagara when the Ford government sat back on their hands, and parents and caregivers needed more before and after school care providers for parents who work full time. Far too many families are forced to choose between working and providing a dual income. The NDP will top up registered EC wages to $25 an hour. Sorry.
And Mr. McDonald, please.
Thank you. I think when it comes to childcare, let's face it, those little children need good care. That is so important. Our whole future depends on them growing up to be great adults, and childcare is an important foundation. The very best childcare comes from the mother. We know that. It's not always possible today, but grandmothers and great-grandmothers can do an awesome job. So I think we should enroll more of them, make it work somehow in the flow of funds, because it's by far the most reasonable way, and it's way by far the best care that the children can get.
Thank you. And Mr. Madill.
Yes, thank you. Far too many families, primarily it's the mother that has to make a decision to either the family pays exorbitant child care costs, or they sacrifice their career to stay home. And for some, it keeps them in a poverty situation either way. The Ford government should have signed this. They should have taken the $10.2 billion from the federal government that was handed to them. They should have took it a long time ago, and they waited until the eve of the election to be the last province to accept it, and it was only done begrudgingly. So what we would do is we would certainly implement that. We will hire the ECs that are necessary to do that. We will fund tuition for them to be trained, because we know we'll need a lot of them. And it's important that it's not only childcare, but it's high quality, regulated childcare, $10 a day for everyone in Ontario. And what we will also fund $10 a day preschool and after school childcare for every child in Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, you had a rebuttal to offer?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make a fact that Ontario families pay the highest childcare fees in the country, with fees the size of a mortgage payment. Some parents make that heartbreaking choice to grow their family merely because of the cost of childcare. The Ontario NDP will deliver universal, public, non-profit, $10 a day childcare in partnership with the federal government.
Thank you. My next question. As inflation and housing costs rise, many seniors on fixed incomes are feeling the financial strain. How would you help preserve standards of living for our seniors? Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. I think that's an issue that governments have been trying to work on, but it does need some more work. And we have our federal programs that help seniors. That maybe there needs to be more effort in that direction from the provincial governments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Madill.
Thank you. Thank you. Our seniors built this province, and they deserve to have their retirements in dignity and as much comfort as possible. And we owe them our gratitude, and we owe them our support. The Ontario government will top up the old age security pension by $1,000 for those that need it, and will increase the qualifying amount for those that qualify for the $1,000 to help. We will also fund home repairs and things like ramps and handles that are needed in the house to keep people in their own homes. And this just ties right in with our commitment to change long-term care, to make it home care first, which will create up to 400,000 opportunities for seniors to stay in their own homes and have the help come to them. These are all things that will help in large measure to make life more comfortable for seniors. Give them the respect that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens.
Yes, time and time again over this pandemic, we have heard from seniors across St. Catharines, and the most heart-wrenching thing is they're being evicted out of their affordable housing. I dealt with a 95-year-old senior that was being evicted out of her apartment building for rent evictions because the Ford government did not protect her from big builders, big builders and developers coming in and buying up the house stockage. So they were evicting Rose from her affordable housing. This is really something that we have to pay attention to as a government. The NDP is committed to make sure that seniors can stay in their homes. We will be putting a $400 caregiving towards the caregiver. That is not a PSW nurse. That is someone that is the seniors, their significant other, their family member will be giving $400 so we can keep seniors in the dignity of their own home.
Thank you. My next question, what investments and changes would you make for our education system, if any, to deliver a better experience and better outcomes for children and for educators? Mr. Madill, you're first.
Thank you. The Ontario Liberal Party has always been the party of education in Ontario, and what we'll do right off the bat is cancel the 413 highway extension that's supposed to cost $10 million and pave over farmland and protected land. And we'll take that money and that's going directly into our school system. To have windows that open and close in the schools, to have proper ventilation systems, to build the new schools that we need, and to get rid of portables. So, and we also will reduce the ratio, the class sizes to 20 right across the board. We'll make grade 13 optional for those students that have lost 2 years with online learning because of the pandemic. We'll hire more teachers to make this happen, and we'll invest in our school systems and bring class sizes down and make our system better and strong like it should be and like it used to be.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Before the pandemic, it was already getting tougher for every child that is in the education system, as well as our educators. Under the Liberal government, we saw classrooms balloon well over 34 students per class. This is troubling to any parent that sends their child to a public education. The NDP cares about education. We believe that investing in our children is investing in a better future for all of us. We will lower classroom sizes to 24 so that children can learn. We will make sure that there's emotional supports there for mental health. We have to invest in our schools. We cannot cut anymore. These deep cuts from the Liberals and the Ford government are killing our educational system.
Thank you. And Mr. McDonald.
In our new blueprint, it's laid out a few good items there on reforming education. One of the things that we're recommending is to alter the tax credit so that there's tax credit for alternate schooling, such as homeschooling. Reduce the admin costs. There's a huge admin burden in the school system, and that doesn't teach the children. That's an admin burden. It needs to be pared down, and it needs to be efficient. And to stop the woke activism, some of the items that were included in that Bill 67 that Belinda was able to stop. So there's a few things that need to be done to make the system work better for our children.
Thank you. My next question. Sustaining our people and our economy through the pandemic has built Ontario's debt to new heights. Yet now we're also told we need investment in infrastructure, healthcare, childcare, and education. If elected, how would you reduce Ontario's public debt while still delivering the government services Ontarians need and expect? Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. The NDP is all about investing in people. It's easy. Decades of underfunding to public services have left our province and the people in it in a desperate situation. As I've stated, our healthcare system is on its knees. Our classrooms are overcrowded with infrastructure that needs to be replaced, like windows in our schools. COVID-19 pandemic forced small and medium-sized businesses right here in St. Catharines to close. The climate crisis looms large on the horizon. The list goes on and on and on, as I'm sure you know. We are going to make investments that investments that matter to the residents. We are going to make sure that people have access to services they need. Along with this, we will cut wasteful spending on projects like Highway 413 and the Bradford Bypass. We will put people before profit.
Mr. McDonald.
The deficit is larger than it's ever been in Ontario, and it's growing at an alarming rate. It's very popular for governments to announce huge spending just as an election's coming up. That's not a new idea, but it's being done again. There's a number of things that need to be done, but just in a nutshell, governments need to manage the money better. When they spend money, make sure it goes where it's supposed to go and it's not skimmed off by in-between people, middlemen, and build up the small business community. Small business is the engine of our economy, and we got to make sure that we're not putting an undue burden on small business with over-regulation and programs as they've experienced in the last couple of years that were just too harsh and too severe.
Thank you. And Mr. Madill.
Thank you. I can understand why the NDP candidate wouldn't address the crux of the question. Is how can we do all of these things that we need to do and also address the budget deficit? So the Liberal Party has done that. We have the only party platform that is fully costed and run through the Financial Accountability Office, and it projects that we can balance the budget a year sooner than when Doug Ford and the Conservatives say that they'll balance it. The difference is we're going to prioritize people over profits, people over pay. We're going to put the focus on people of Ontario, and the investments that we make will generate growth in our economy. For every dollar that goes into building new homes and affordable houses, $1.40 comes back into the economy. Our plan has been approved by the Financial Accountability Office. We're the only party that does that can actually project that we will balance the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, you would like to offer a rebuttal?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to remind the residents of St. Catharines that under 14 years of the Liberal government, this is why we are here, as well as 4 years under the Ford government. The NDP will be putting people before profit, and we will not turn to the private sector to solve problems that real governments like the NDP will solve.
Thank you. Seeing no other rebuttals, my next question. Every year, 3 million people in Ontario do not visit a dental office because they cannot afford it. How would you bring affordable dental care to more Ontarians? Mr. McDonald.
I believe there has been an announcement recently of some movement on that level from the feds on dental care. So that will help. But we need to make sure that, especially our children and all the adults, taking care of their health in every way, including their mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madill?
Yes, thank you. Dental care is health care, and when people can't afford to have proper dental care, it leads to more serious problems. It's true, yes, the federal government is proposing a nationwide dental care plan, and we will wait and we'll see what is there and we'll see where we can enhance and improve that. In the meantime, we're going to, for all workers out there that don't have benefits now, they will have access to a portable benefit package that will travel with them from job to job, that will provide dental care, drug coverage, mental health coverage. And so we recognize that dental care is an important issue, and we'll make sure that the people of Ontario get coverage for that.
Thank you. And lastly, Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. We can have better health without a bill. No one in Ontario should be starving or not being able to put the food on the table. No one should be living in pain because of because they have a toothache. No one should have to sit in a hallway in a hospital for hours because they cannot afford a filling. It's a heartbreaking decision for any parent to put off a child's filling and to see their child in pain. The NDP will fix this. The way we will lead the way on a dental program, working with the federal government to strengthen and accelerate the expansion of dental care. We will make sure we have universal dental care, universal pharmacare, and most of all, universal health care.
Thank you. My next question. Many regions in Ontario, including Niagara, are felt to be overgoverned and have municipal bureaucracies out of proportion to their needs. The provincial government has the ability to address this. What would you do to streamline municipal government and make it more responsive to citizen and business needs? Mr. Madill.
Well, first of all, the Ontario Liberal Party recognizes that we have to work with stakeholders in everything that we plan to bring forward, and this is no different. So we would work with our regional and municipal partners to review the governance system to see what works and doesn't work. When the previous Conservative government had brought in amalgamation into a bunch of cities into different regions, Ottawa, Toronto, London, Hamilton, those ended up costing a lot more money than they saved. So that's something that we don't want to fall into that trap again. We have to make sure that any changes that are made to governance systems are accepted by the people, because ultimately the democratic process is to serve the people, and the people should decide how it should be. So we would look at these things, but we're not going to make the same mistakes as the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens?
Thank you. One thing we should all realize, we should realize is that the municipal government and the regional governments are the two governments that are closest to the people. I was municipal councillor for 17 years. Spent many days having a cup of tea or going to residents' houses to deal with their issues. But with over 2 decades of past provincial governments, municipalities have been left to struggle. They've been left to struggle by supplying safe roads, transit, daycare. There's so many things that the provincial government can do. And I know that the NDP will work in partnership with municipalities in the region and deal to reverse the unfair downloading of what this past provincial governments have done. Let's restore 50% funding for transit, para-transit operations instead of pun things like a buck of beer or a buck of transit. Let's do action. Let's make sure our municipalities are well looked after.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. McDonald.
Provincial government, of course, needs to work closely with municipalities. And if you choose to elect me as your MPP, I would pledge to work closely with the city of St. Catharines. I understand now that we'll have a new mayor come the next election in St. Catharines. And so there'll be an opportunity to make workable relationships there and to help make things more efficient, more streamlined, and to address the real needs of the citizens of our city.
Thank you. Mr. Madill, you had a rebuttal to offer?
Yes, thank you. I answered the question directly as to possible restructuring of the levels of government, and that's something that would be discussed and worked on, and will have to be generated by all the parties. So I've had, of course, we'll restore and we'll make sure that we can give proper and adequate and strong funding to municipalities in the region. I've had very good meetings recently with Mayor St. Catharines and with the regional chair, and talked with them about what the needs are from the provincial government. And they've given me some very positive feedback about what they're looking for. And restructuring government wasn't one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What do you see as the most critically important issue for voters aged 18 to 35, and how would you work to address this issue? Ms. Stevens.
ODSP. Over 2.6 million of Ontarians live with a disability. And the Wynne Del-Duca Liberals and the Ford government saw ODSP rates sink more and more into poverty and cost the residents of Ontario living on ODSP not to be able to afford to live. Rates of ODSP stayed stagnant since the 90s. And this is past the Liberal government and the Ford government. This is absolutely shameful that these two governments have stood idle for 30 plus years. All residents deserve to live in dignity, knowing they can pay their bills and pay for housing and food. The NDP commits to raising the ODSP rates by 20% immediately after forming government and doubling it in year 2 from the current rate index of inflation, lifting everyone on ODSP out of poverty by ending our first term.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Well, I do agree with Ms. Stevens on that item. The ODSP people are really hurting. I know that firsthand. And of course, we have to do everything possible to try to help them out. There are other things that we can do to help that age group. Those folks in that age group, they find more and more that it's not practical for them to own a car. And so we need to try in every way possible to make it convenient for them to get around and convenient for the transit. And even if they live a little bit out of the city center, that they can still go to work on schedules that work for them. So anything that we can do to encourage the local municipality to give good transit service to those folks will help them. They don't have to try to find money for a car on top of their rent problems.
Thank you. Mr. Madill.
Would you please repeat that question?
Certainly. What do you see as the most critically important issue for voters aged 18 to 35, and how would you work to address this issue?
Thank you. I thought that's what you said. I would say the most critical issue for voters 18 to 35 is to get active and vote. If people 18 to 35 voted, there would be no chance that Doug Ford would be the Premier of Ontario. Young people are progressives. They want to vote. They want a bright future. So they're looking for opportunity. They're looking for good, great quality schooling. They're looking for an opportunity to be able to go to university or college or into a trade and not be crippled with debt. So they need proper funding. They need more OSAP grants, not OSAP loans. They need forgiveness of loan interest for those students that have recently gone through it. They need assistance with getting affordable housing. These are things that are critical. These are things that they won't get with the Ford government. And the only way that they're going to get them is to get out and vote for the progressive policies of the Ontario Liberal Party.
Thank you. The next question. What policies would a government of your party propose to ensure that paid leave is equitable and fair for employees and employers? Mr. McDonald.
I want to be sure I understand what you asked. I got some of it, but You said equity between.
Shall I read it again?
If you
Okay.
don't mind.
Yes, of course. What policies would a government of your party propose to ensure that paid leave is equitable and fair for employees and employers?
Employers. So you're talking about the pay rate. Pay rate.
This is just a community question. I'm reading it out here. I can't infer anything from it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure I can offer much on that, but certainly it's an issue that we're interested in, and I just don't want to sit here and take out some answers. So, thank you for the question, David.
Okay, so I will pass to Mr. Madill.
Yes, thank you. We would increase access to paid leave, particular parental leave, up to 18 months without taking a reduction in it. We would top up that amount so that workers can stay home and have those first 18 months with their child and not suffer economically. And we would subsidize the increase in that. And as well, we would make sure that every worker in the province of Ontario has access to 10 paid sick days per year without the threat of losing their job, that their work is protected. They have 10 paid sick days per year. And that was something that Doug Ford, when he was elected, that was one of the first things that he got rid of. We'll restore that. So that, and for employers as well, they should have access to that too. They should have access to EI covered parental leave.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. The gender wage gap in Ontario is persistent, with women earning 29% less than an average annual earning and 11% less than men in an average hourly wage. The NDP will update and enforce the Pay Equity Act and Pay Transparent Act to address the gender wage gap. We will apply an intersectional gender lens to the government budgeting policy and programming. We will also repeal Doug Ford's discriminatory Bill 124, which suppresses wages in women-dominated caring sectors. We will also make sure that there is 10 paid sick days for women escaping violence, and ensure that they can access additional leave if they need it without fear of repercussion.
Thank you. The next question I have is work done predominantly by women, such as nursing, personal support, childcare, and essential retail, is crucial for the functioning of community and economy. Yet, this work does not always offer the pay and stability of skilled work in male-dominated fields. What are your plans to protect and nurture these essential occupations and those who work in them? Mr. Madill, I turn to you first.
What were those occupations that you said again?
The occupations that were listed by the submitter were nursing, personal support, childcare, and essential retail.
Thank you. First of all, we'll repeal Bill 124 that froze the wages of nurses, who again were our healthcare heroes during the pandemic. And they were working understaffed because there were people off, and the hospital rooms were crowded beyond capacity. And we'll repeal Bill 124. We'll give them the wage increase that they deserve. PSWs, their work is invaluable and most of the time thankless, but they're heroes as well. We will raise their pay to $25 at a minimum, and we'll encourage training and access to subsidized training for people to go into that field. And we will reinstitute the equal pay for work of equal value legislation that we had that the Ford government rescinded.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens.
These professions that were listed are predominantly for women, and we have seen this sector of healthcare, ECs, and I'm not sure the other.
It was nursing, personal support, childcare, and essential retail.
Nursing, public health, all of those are predominantly women jobs. So we will absolutely repeal Bill 124. We will make sure that women do not have to run from one job to another. This has been seen through the pandemic. The fair pay between women and men, equity pay, is not equal. Too many women are going from job to job and worrying about childcare. ECE, we will increase their pay to $25 an hour. Again, repeal Bill 124 for all public sector workers. That includes housekeepers, dietary, that includes nurses, PSWs. That's public sector that the Ford government put in place at 12 o'clock in an omnibus bill. Let's repeal that on June 2nd under the NDP government.
Mr. McDonald, I'll turn to you.
Yes, there's been a number of bills that were passed without transparency, without openness by the government, and that needs to stop. There needs to be public accountability for all the actions of the provincial government. There needs to be restored dignity and transparency in our healthcare system. We need to encourage those folks that were mentioned, the nurses, the PSWs, the child care workers. They deserve to be treated well. They deserve to be paid properly, and they deserve to be encouraged because they're doing critical work. And sometimes it's not appreciated as much as it ought to be. So this is a priority to look after the citizens of our province and make sure that the government is not their obstacle and it's not their enemy, but rather that it is encouraging them and helping them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madill, you wish to offer your fifth and final rebuttal of the debate, correct?
Yes. Yes, I just wanted to emphasize that the Ontario Liberal Party is committed to gender equality and equity in the workplace. And as evidence of that, look at our slate of candidates. We have candidates of high quality right across Ontario, and we're over 50% women. If you go to OntarioLiberal.ca and you look at it, you'll see a diversity of cultures, you'll see predominance of females, women, and I can guarantee you that a Liberal government will ensure that we get gender parity done.
Thank you. Seeing no further rebuttals, I'll move on to our next community question. What plans do you have to address gender-based violence and harassment, including the targeting of female politicians? Ms. Stevens, I turn to you first.
Female politicians in the city jail. And you will not.
That's right, sir. I did ask if you would refrain from outbursts. You will get a chance to express your opinion in the ballot box. We're asking questions from the community that have been submitted to us. So it's not our questions, it's questions that people want to hear answered. And so I will allow the candidates to answer. Thank you. Ms. Stevens, go ahead.
Thank you. Female politicians deserve the respect that they deserve around any table at political level. I must say that being a woman in politics, I look at it as I bring another perspective to the table. I work closely with males, I work with counterparts as politicians, but most of all, I think it's really important that an intersectional gender lens to a government budgeting and policy and programs must be put in place. We must provide 10 days of paid leave when women are escaping violence and ensuring that they can access additional leave if they need it without repeal or repercussions. Women and children from dying at the hands of intimate partners. We must protect them, and we will make sure that they have places that they can go and feel safe.
Thank you. Now, Mr. McDonald.
So we're speaking about trying to deal with an issue that has been there for a long time, and we're making some progress, but we need to make a lot more. We want all of our workers and our citizens to live in a society where they're respected. If that's not happening with one particular segment to some extent, then we need to focus on that and make sure that that's corrected. So our party is certainly interested in that, and certainly promotes that idea, and will do what's necessary. Even in the recent couple of years, we've seen governments act in ways that were driving fear and mandates where they should have been encouraging and using kindness in those situations and consent issues. So this needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madill, you'd like me to answer the question? Of course, it is. What plans do you have to address gender-based violence and harassment, including the targeting of female politicians?
Thank you. Well, we have to deal with this as what it is. It's a crime. And women, as well as people of color and people from the LGBTQ community, they should be free to go about their lives, to have equality in the workplace, to have equality under the law, and to be treated properly and not discriminated against. And when someone is discriminated against or harassed, we need to make sure that it's dealt with firmly and harshly. And so the first thing is education. And I think that, I know that just in my lifetime, I've seen it come a long way. People recognize now when something's wrong. And so once we are educated, we can recognize that, we can work to prevent it and stop it before it starts. And when it does happen, we need to make sure that it's a light is shone on it and it's dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question. The price of gasoline has skyrocketed, yet alternatives such as electric vehicles or good public transit are often too expensive or simply unavailable. How do you deliver for the transportation needs of Ontarians? Mr. McDonald.
Yes, if we were still using gallons, our gasoline would be now at $8 or $9 a gallon, and that's pretty shocking. So there's definitely a problem there. There's a lot of taxes on it. There's a carbon tax on. Those things need to be changed. Our party has promised to remove the provincial carbon tax, and we've got to make it more feasible for people to move around. Moving around is not a luxury. People need to go to work, they need to go shopping, so whether they need to own a car or they need to have excellent transit available. And the government needs to encourage that in every way possible.
Thank you. Mr. Madill.
Well, using petroleum for transportation is something that has to continue to be reduced and eventually eliminated. We all recognize that. The high price of fuel is a global phenomenon, and there's limited control what can be done with that. So we need to transition to electric. But I must say that the NDP's platform proposes to cost families more by increasing the gas tax. So, but we recognize that we have to make that transition. We'll make investments of up to $9,500 in rebates for the purchase of electric vehicles. We'll make sure that there are charging stations accessible to people that are all across the province so that people can get from point A to point B and get charged up when they need to. And our Buck a Ride program province-wide will take 400,000 cars off of the roads. And we know that we have to work to have first-class transportation system and move to electric.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens, finally.
Thank you. Ontario drivers are being gouged at the pumps. Gas gouging is driving up the costs of everything in our lives. Just like food, it's driving up clothing, it's driving up everything. High gas prices are really hurting families across Ontario. It's almost a mortgage to be able to get back and forth to work with the high gas prices. The NDP, when government, will give the Ontario Energy Board a mandate to monitor the prices of gasoline across Ontario and advise on policies to reduce prices and unfair regional prices differences while encouraging competition and transparency. Andrea Horvath and the NDP, we can start to fix gas prices by banning gas gouging.
Thank you. Next question. Many Ontarians do not realize the impact that red tape has on their lives. Excessive or difficult regulations. Are you having trouble hearing me? That's right.
some words I can't hear. I guess I'm
Yeah, I don't know if it's.
Okay, I'm going to try and eat the mic then, and hopefully that will help. I'll start again. Many Ontarians do not realize the impact that red tape has on their lives. Excessive or difficult regulations for construction and renovation, for example, help drive up the cost of housing and reduce housing supply. How can we reduce the regulatory burden while still holding business to high standards for health, safety, and consumer protection? Mr. Madill.
Yes, thank you. We have to make things easier, more streamlined, to give encouragement and support for businesses to thrive. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And for much of the past 2 years, Ontario hasn't been open for business. The pandemic's devastating impacts on people's jobs and small businesses were made worse by Doug Ford's chaotic decision-making. It's time to get the fundamentals right and make life easier for small businesses so that they can bounce back stronger than ever. That's why we'll eliminate corporate taxes for small businesses hurt deeply by the pandemic for 2 years. We'll also backstop loans to tens of thousands of small businesses. We'll fund programs that can help small and medium-sized businesses go digital. We'll make strategic investments in hard-hit industries like tourism, music, culture, and sports. We'll help entrepreneurs and small business owners by eliminating incorporation fees and helping them to navigate government supports. We'll give businesses the environment so that they can thrive again.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens?
Thank you. Over the 4 years that I've represented the City of St. Catharines as a member of Provincial Parliament, I've seen time and time again the Ford government say that they're going to be cutting red tape. Well, let me tell you, it wasn't red tape, it was yellow tape, because it was full of caution. Every bill that they put forward that said, oh, we're going to cut red tape to municipalities, it has done nothing but made our greenbelt look like Swiss cheese. They carved it up. We will make sure that we cancel the Bradford bypass and the 413. This will be amazing cost benefits to you as residents here in St. Catharines and across. We have precious farmlands here. We cannot be cutting through red tape and expediting any municipality to be able to build out instead of up, or looking after our green belts, our food, our precious fruit, our precious farmlands. Please, when you hear red tape reductions, remember, it's often yellow tape. Caution.
Thank you. And Mr. McDonald, please.
Well, I've been a small business for a number of years in St. Catharines. I've experienced some of those issues. I know it could be a lot more, could be a big improvement for businesses to function and to prosper and to build the economy together. This is an important item. There's just too many unnecessary regulations. The mandates were overdone, and the businesses were hurting, and it's hard to recover. Some of them will never recover. Some of them are already long gone, and that's just really not good for the future of the province. Of course, it's not good for the businesses, but the businesses are like the province. So we've got to make it a friendly place to do business. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone's been very patient for an hour, so I will make this perhaps our final question of the evening. Ontario's colleges supply much of our research and development, including to small businesses, yet the programs are underfunded compared to other provinces. How would you help colleges to support our businesses? And Ms. Stevens, we'll go first.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat it. I don't know if I can't hear you because you're
I'm talking into a piece of paper.
Yes, sorry.
It's entirely my fault, so I'll read it again.
Yes, please.
Okay, Ontario's colleges supply much of our R&D, including to small businesses, yet the programs are underfunded compared to other provinces. How would you help colleges to support small businesses?
Thank you. Our small businesses are the backbone to our community. We have to make sure any way we possibly can to make sure that we keep those doors open. You know, we often look at post-secondary school as a privilege, but we have to start making it more affordable for students coming out of high school. Ontario's lowest student has the lowest student funding. We should be leading this so that we can make sure apprenticeships are able to go from colleges to our small businesses and make them thrive and make them be able to, these students from post-secondary be able to work in our communities and small businesses.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, I think that's it's extremely important that we, as a government, that we support our community colleges and the trade schools. And many of those trade schools are incorporated into the colleges now. That's a really good thing, and there needs to be more of that, and encourage the young people to look at those options. They don't all have to go through the university system. So there's a lot to be done there, and it'll help the wages of those folks, and it'll help the businesses that are looking for graduates to come out of those trades. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Madill.
Yes, thank you.
We know that the Ford Conservatives cut transfers for operating grants to colleges and universities and made it more difficult for them to provide the services that they need to provide to train students for the technologies of the future and the skills of the future. So the quick answer right off the bat is we will increase operating grants to universities. And on top of that, we'll make it easier for and possible for many students that it's impossible for today, make it possible for them to get college or university education by doubling OSAP funding, making it more generous and easier to access, freezing tuition, eliminating interest on provincial student loans, bring adult learners and other training supports into OSAP, help colleges and universities create safe, inclusive campuses, scrap the Ford Conservatives' policy to cut budgets for student-led groups. These are some of the things we will do. You need the funding. We recognize you need the funding to be able to provide the services, and that's what we will do as an Ontario Liberal provincial government. Thank you.
Thank you. And that'll be it for questions. I want to thank everyone who submitted questions to us. I hope that you heard answers that will help you decide how to cast your ballot if this was eliminated. Each candidate will now have an opportunity to make a closing statement of 2 minutes, and it will be in the reverse order of the opening statements, which means that Mr. Madill is first offering his closing remarks. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go.
Over the past hour and a half, you've all had the chance to listen to the positive, liberal, fully costed plan championed by our strong leader, Stephen Del Duca. This is a new progressive plan that you can trust me and the Ontario Liberals to implement in St. Catharines and across the province. You've also had a chance to listen to plans that don't rise to the challenges that we face in our community today. Doug Ford and his Conservative candidates are too arrogant to even come here and take questions from the public. But we all know what a disaster their 4 years in office has been. There are multiple reports of Doug Ford helping out his developer friends with multi-million-dollar home development contracts, while ordinary people are forced out of the housing market. The Conservatives have treated our teachers and nurses with contempt, and they've also put profit ahead of people's lives in long-term care homes throughout the pandemic. On the other hand, we've seen the same sad story play out with the NDP for the past 3 elections, now going into the 4th. They still have the same leader who totally failed to hold Doug Ford accountable for the past 4 years, especially during the pandemic. They still don't have a fully costed platform. They're adding multi-million-dollar promises as recently as yesterday. They still have the same ideas, thinking that things will change for them this time around. And the NDP has accomplished nothing for the city of St. Catharines in the last 4 years. Only Liberals beat Conservatives. We need to get Doug Ford out of Queen's Park, and we need to get results back in the city of St. Catharines. You can trust me to deliver on those results. On June 2nd, please vote for Ryan Madill. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, your closing thoughts, sir.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. The New Blue Party is a candidate in every riding in this election. And the reason for that is because many citizens were disillusioned with the big old parties. They just all seemed too similar and all leaning in the same direction. For those of you who want to vote conservative, the New Blue offers that option. We must push back against harmful policies and restore transparency to Queen's Park. We promise to axe the PC Industrial Carbon Tax, restore dignity and support to our healthcare workers, respect our citizens. Too many have not voted in the past. I know many of them personally. We just haven't voted for years. Some young ones and some not so young. And it's because of a lack of trust of the options that were in front of them. So you can't blame them for doing it. We keep saying they've got to vote, but they need to be comfortable with where they're placing their vote. So on June 2nd, please vote for the New Blue Party. I'm the representative in St. Catharines, Keith McDonald. You'll see me on the ballot. Follow me on Facebook if you haven't had an opportunity to. And by all means, take a look at the New Blueprint on the website of the New Blue Party, newblueontario.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ms. Stevens, your closing remarks, please.
Thank you, and it's been a distinct honor and a privilege to be able to answer the questions for all the residents here in St. Catharines, and for all the folks that are here this evening, be it on video or here live. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and listen and make your vote count. An educated vote is so important. I want to let you know only the NDP has a path to defeat Doug Ford and the PCs in this election. We have a bold and attainable plan to address the problems created by the back-to-back Ford government and the Del Duca Wynne government. I am a strong advocate and ready to work for you. Together, we know what it will take to make things right in this province. From our healthcare systems to our schools, from our greenbelt to our downtown St. Catharines, we have a plan to fix what is broken. Let's rebuild what we have lost and fix what has been broken for far too long. Let's revive our public healthcare system and ramp up the staffing. Let's get every Ontarian who needs its mental health care, drug and dental care paid for with OHIP cards, not your credit cards. Let's get profit out of our seniors' care and give our older adults the care they deserve. And let's make life more affordable for everyone, from hydro to gas prices to childcare and the cost of housing. Remember, June 2nd is Election Day. Make your vote count. Vote for Jennie Stevens to be your MPP for St. Catharines. I have been your voice for 4 years, and I am eager and ready to keep up the fight on your behalf for another 4 years. Jennie Stevens, NDP. Thank you again for coming in.
All right, thank you so much. So my time up here is coming to an end, I'm sure you're glad to hear. And it has been my pleasure to moderate this debate. I found it very enlightening, and I hope that you all did as well. And as we're drawing to a close, I'd like to invite the GNCC CEO, Mishka Balsam, back to the stage to close out the evening. Thank you.
My thanks to the three of you for actually answering the questions that were in front of you. As you know, none of the questions were shared with the candidates in advance, so I think it's really our privilege to hear how you would address it. The real difference that we make is based on the policies and the platforms that are in front of you. The more we can vote on those facts that are there, I think the better off our province and our city and our region will be. To all of you, thank you for being such a patient audience. It's not always the easiest to listen to it and not to say something when we hear comments that are being made, but we really appreciate it. My thanks go to Hugo for actually leading us through this. It was a great job. Thank you very much. And to a couple of my fellow colleagues in the back. We have Brad who's recording it and taping it and it will be available to us. We have Karina who makes everything possible from operations and all the little details that bring an event together. And to my colleague Emma, who is sitting beside me actually, and sharing some of the comments that were made today on social media. So thank you very much for being here with us, and you have a chance to talk to the candidates, and I wish you all the best from now until June 2nd, and all of us the best after that. Thank you.